The California Association of Licensed Security Agencies, Guards, and Associates, and we are the trade organization for the security industry in California. We have over 200 companies that are involved with it. It's a company-based membership, and most of those are contract security agencies, and we do have a handful of proprietary security agencies that belong to the organization as well. Probably represent about 70,000 security officers in California. In California, the industry is strong, and certainly California has always been a leader in terms of professionalizing the industry and professionalizing security officers. We were one of the first states to require background investigations and fingerprinting, and all of our officers before they're licensed are required to have a California DOJ check and a FBI check, and we do that through a name check and fingerprinting. And then in addition, there's a requirement in the state for officers to have 40 hours of training, and that training is broken up over the initial 6-month period, although some companies provide all 40 hours up front. We're regulated by the Bureau of Security and Investigative Services, which is a bureau under the Department of Consumer Affairs for the state of California.
And that's different in each state?
It's different in each state.
And how active is the regulator over here?
I would say that BSIS is quite active, given budgetary constraints that they operate under, but they spend a lot of their time going after unlicensed activity, whether it be the individual officer unlicensed or the company unlicensed that's providing the officer. I would say in my discussions with people in other states that, yeah, unlicensed activity is a concern really everywhere. On a federal level, there are some, as is International has come up with some standards, training standards, and there is always discussion about about improving the standards on a federal level. With 50 states, that's a difficult process, and time will tell how successful that the industry can be with that. But certainly there's discussion about that on a federal level. There are certainly 4-year schools and a number of 2-year community colleges that offer programs in security management. Some of the programs are labeled as criminal justice programs, and the students in those programs have the option of going into public law enforcement or private security. But those programs do exist and are generally fairly well attended. We certainly encourage officers to improve their educational level. It certainly helps them in their own ability to move ahead in organizations. In order to carry a firearm in California, in addition to your guard license or your what we call a guard card, you have to have a firearms qualification card, which requires additional training, both classroom training on the ethics and use of firearms, as well as practical training on a firing course to ensure that you can do that. I would say that in California, far more officers are unarmed than are armed officers, and usually the armed officers are armed for a specific reason. It might be a government requirement in a Department of Defense cleared facility. Could just be the nature of the work, but certainly the vast majority of officers in California are unarmed. And there's always a discussion about private security taking on a larger role because public law enforcement is overtaxed. I can tell you that in California, one of the things that's occurring are programs where private security and public law enforcement are working together to improve the communications between themselves. There's a program that in Los Angeles called LEAPS, which is Law Enforcement and Private Security Partnership, and there's also a program down in San Diego, the San Diego LEAPS program, in which again the private security and public law enforcement are working closely together and improving communications. I happen to have been involved in the start of the San Diego program, and the intent at the start of the program was for the field officer, the field security officer, say in a high-rise building in downtown San Diego, to have a much better relationship and be able to communicate better with the beat officer who works that particular area in San Diego as well. And the training programs that we put together are aimed at that goal, to improve that form of communication and to improve the perception of each other to each other. I think one of the things that in the industry that has always occurred is that law enforcement may not think as highly of the security officer, and security officer may may return that feeling just out of almost out of necessity. But I think that these LEAPS programs help the two begin to communicate and find out that they are really out there to achieve the same goal. I think we're always going to have, especially in the situation that the United States is in right now with a lot of troops returning from overseas, there's going to be that military element coming into the security field. But you also see a number of people who see security as a business in addition to being a security profession, and they're coming into the business without that background in law enforcement or the military. I think business overall is improving. I think that security is one of those things that people understand that they need. I think that while there's been some emphasis on security systems in the past, that they also understand that having the uniformed security officer to watch the camera or to be there is vitally important as well. So I think the industry, service industry in general, is doing reasonably well in the United States. You find more and more security officers using handheld, basically cell phones, GPS-equipped cell phones. Another popular thing that's coming into the area are tablets, where officers are using tablets to do their reports, to report safety issues on a site or whatever. So technology is becoming increasingly more important to the uniformed security officer, giving them the ability to do their job more on a real-time basis and to report things on a real-time basis. Things changed very dramatically in the United States after 9/11, and I think that one of those things that changed is an improving perception on a regular basis of what security does and how it helps keep America safe. Certainly legislative advocacy is one of our important things that we do at CALSAGA. Our stated mission is to improve the professionalism of the security industry in California. And if we can do that through legislation, we do that. If we do that through education and training, we certainly do that. We have an active training program and education program. We put on 3 or 4 seminars annually, as well as our annual conference, which this year is going to be at Disneyland. And our annual conference is basically an education-based conference to help both the business owner and the person who works for them do their job better. We have a bill that we're sponsoring right now that that has passed a couple of hurdles, hasn't become law yet, and it would allow armed officers to be able to go to work sooner by using a downloaded replica of their guard card rather than having to wait for the guard card. And really the idea behind that was being able to put people to work quicker without adversely affecting public safety. It in no way changes the training or other requirements to be an armed officer. It just allows people to go to work quicker. There are probably about 35 other statewide associations. There's an active association in Florida called FASCO, the Florida Association of Security Companies. Texas has a very active association. There's an active association in New York as well as New Jersey. So there are other associations that are active in their own states in getting things done.
And is there much engagement between the associations nationally?
Not as much as we'd like to have, and I think that that's a worthwhile goal for us in the future, is to do more communicating. In my position with CALSAGA, I communicate regularly with the people in Texas, and we do keep an eye on legislation that is going on in other states to see where that is trended. You find a number of women that are in the private security field, both with proprietary companies as well as contract companies, and I think it's been good for the industry. Another organization that has sprung up in the United States is called InfraGard. And InfraGard is a intelligence sharing organization between public and private entities, and I think it's worked very well, and I think we need to see more of that. And I think, prior to 9/11, there was a hesitancy to share information, and since that time we've done a better job of sharing information, And I think people see the real value in being able to do that. Those LEAPS programs that I talked about earlier are information sharing programs, and I think they're important to keeping the United States secure.
Well, Roy, thanks very much for coming
Very
on.
welcome.
Really, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And as a CPP, Association Manager for CALSAGA, I wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.